Wasn't that incredible? Wow, what a thing. So now let's talk about it. I am so excited to introduce our moderator for this panel today, Calvin Ledford. Hold on one second. Calvin is responsible for management and governance of the programs and operations in corporate citizenship, corporate giving, volunteerism, and the PSEG Foundation. In response to the coronavirus pandemic, Calvin led an initiative that awarded $2.5 million to local nonprofits throughout New Jersey, supporting medical, social, and economic needs of the New Jersey community. Calvin has over a 35-year career that has allowed him to cultivate and maintain strong relationships with communities and stakeholders all across PSEG's service and operating territory. Calvin is active in the community, including serving as a member of Omega Psi Phi fraternity, as well as the Prince Hall Free and Accepted Masons. We are so delighted to have you here moderating this panel. Welcome, Calvin. Welcome.
Thank you, Donna. I appreciate it. Well, good evening, everybody. How's everybody? Good. Don't it make you proud? Yes. I do have to say, though, we towards the end there, we have to assume a brother and sister, but we saw a family, young ladies being dropped off, families being real emotional. Looked like she was giving some love and hug to her brother, and that's what I assumed it is. But not everybody had that same experience. Some of us got dropped off at the bus stop and family said, you know, not everybody had that same experience. But once we got there, it was all good, right, man? Yeah, it was all good. It was all good. So I'm gonna sit down and relax before introducing our great esteemed panel that we're gonna have. So just a couple things. So I must say, and really just kind of ask, you know, you still have people, whether it's family members, colleagues at work, people that you engage with, that don't know anything about our HBCUs. Well, first you need to tell them they better ask somebody. But other than that, really, take the time to please provide them with some history. Let them know the impact of HBCUs on African Americans, on this country, the history of this country. So please, I'm hoping conversations like this don't start and end tonight around the celebration of Juneteenth, but let's continue this discussion. Just bear with me, let me just share a couple things that I want you. First of all, I want to acknowledge and really say thank you to the team at NJPAC for working with us today. John at the top, I don't think John Schreiber's here tonight, but they have an excellent network of working together and working with the PSEG Foundation and partnering on this diversity series where we come before you and try to have deep discussions around, you know, difficult topics. So we really appreciate you doing this and bringing us together. Thank you for that. So we're gonna go ahead and let's get it. So let me introduce our esteemed panel. We'll bring them up one at a time, and once they're up here, we'll ask each of them to tell you a little bit about themselves. So first, I'm gonna invite Dr. Karma Brown Warren to the stage, representing Tuskegee. Next, Ms. Brielle Lewis, representing Hampton University. And the person that needs no introduction, our mayor, Raz J. Baraka, representing Howard University, the other HC. All right, so Dr. K, please share a little bit about yourself, please.
Okay, quickly. Good evening. I am Dr. Karma Brown Warren. I am a Brick City daughter who attended Tuskegee University. I am an emergency medicine trauma doctor who worked right up the street at University Hospital in Newark for the last 20 years. I currently work on venous insufficiency with veins, and I represent, like I said, the Tuskegee University Tigers, baby.
So good evening, everyone. My name is Brielle Lewis. I'm currently the Director of Sponsorship Strategy with Prudential Financial. I see so many Hamptonians in the crowd. And listen, we show up. I don't see no Howard shirts made. I am also from New Jersey and a member of the North Jersey Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. All right, Sarah.
I'm sorry, Sarah, so am I.
See this happen, you did this, Calvin.
I was invited like you, man.
Well, I'm the mayor of the city of Newark, largest city in the state. Born and raised in the city of Newark all my life. I went to Howard University, the real HU, you know. And I am a member of Alpha Phi Fraternity Incorporated, the oldest and the coldest organization.
Hey, boy! Easy there, Larry. We're not gonna have Let us stay focused. Let us stay focused. Just a couple other quick items before we get started with the questions. It's shared with you that I went to Hampton University. You should know that both of my daughters attended and graduated from Hampton University. And I would be remiss if I didn't take the time. First, I want you to reflect back in the early part of the documentary. It kind of showed an area that was overlooking a bay and a big clock overneath at the top of a chapel. Well, 35 years ago today, I married this young lady, Dr. Dion Ledford, who was over in the crowd someplace. And she was another Hampton University graduate. So we're celebrating our 35th anniversary with you all. And it happened on that day. All right, so let's get it. So, first question is, why is it that you attended an HBCU? Brielle?
So I attended an HBCU. It was not in my plans at all. I didn't even know, frankly, what an HBCU was. I don't have a lot of family members, like Calvin talked about, having a legacy of HBCU attendance. That just wasn't my story. But I did have a best friend who, and this is why it's so important, the people you surround yourselves with, especially when you're making life decisions like this. But her brother went to North Carolina A&T. And we had decided that we were going to apply to all of the same schools. And whatever schools that we both got into, those are the ones we would consider attending. And so we both got into Hampton and we went and saw the campus. And I saw the water. I was over there, we have 12 to 2 every Friday as a party every Friday on campus. They had a 5-year MBA program. I knew that I wanted to go into business. Not only did they have that program had 99% job placement, meaning everybody leaves here with a job. And the minimum salary was $65,000. And so I'm like, if I know I'm gonna get a job and I'm gonna make at least 65, I'm gonna be all right. I'm gonna be okay. But again, the people you surround yourself with are so important, because I initially just wanted to go to Montclair State or Union County College because that's where all of my classmates were going. And so I wanted to go to the 13th grade with them. But I had to, y'all caught that a little late. But that is why I wanted to go to HBCU. And then again, you get there, I had never met Black people from Wisconsin. I didn't know what the DMV was. I had never been exposed to true Black wealth, right? You come from legacy. Your family owns boats. You're at Martha's Vineyard every summer. And it just was this utopia that I just had to be a part of.
I appreciate that. Dr. K?
Well, I tell you, my story is a little different. I grew up in a household where my mother said, I'm only paying for you to go to an HBCU. So I didn't have a choice. But I had an uncle who was an electrical engineer who graduated from Tuskegee University, and I wanted to be like him. So I attended Tuskegee University with the thought of being like my uncle. So I majored in electrical engineering and I graduated in electrical engineering. So I wanted to be like him, who was a vice president at Hewlett-Packard. And I knew I could get that from Tuskegee because he got it. And when I graduated Tuskegee, I had 13 job offers. So that's why I went to Tuskegee.
All right.
I'm married, a child I knew about HBCUs and Howard specifically. My dad went to Howard for a little while, but I still wasn't convinced. And I was a little hard-headed as a young man. I was on my way to University High School, which is where I went to high school in Newark. It was down the street from my house, which means I was late every day. And while I was walking to school one day, there was a bus in front, and the kids were getting on the bus. Rosita Holiday, who was the guidance counselor then, said to me, "Oh, you're supposed to be on this trip." And I'm smart out. I said, "No, I'm not." She said, "Yes, you are." I said, "I don't have a permission slip, so I can't go." So I meandered in the building, went to my homeroom class. They called my name on the loudspeaker to come to the office. I come to the office. She's on the phone with my mom. She's like, "Here goes your permission." So I got on the bus. I went to Howard University, and I just fell in love as soon as I walked on the campus. It was just an amazing experience for me that day, just talking to kids and other young people. They were studying math and science and astronomy and all kinds of things. And I was like, wow, this is amazing to me. And I made a decision that I will only fill out one college application. And I always tell kids not to do what I did. I filled out one college application. That was to Howard University. I was determined to go to Howard, and God is good because I graduated from Howard University.
That's fine. That's fine. Let's stay with that a minute. So all of you expressed information about your decision, and with pride, all of you are speaking about how you had a good time there. But let me tighten the question up a little bit. Did it actually meet your expectations? Can you speak to that a little bit?
It exceeded my expectations.
Okay.
When I got to Hampton, again, even at that time, Hampton had a reputation of being a little bit of a party school. Like, you're gonna go here, you're gonna go to block parties, you're gonna go to Holland Hall, you're gonna be in the student center, homecoming is exciting. But when you get to Hampton's campus in your freshman year, you're on curfew for the first 10 weeks of school.
Oh, you gotta tighten up.
And you have to be in by 11 on the weekdays and 1 on the weekends. It really creates this structure of balance automatically from your freshman year. It is kicked off like, I am not just here to party and meet people and, meet a husband or something. I am really here to get an education and to be able to thrive. So far exceeded my expectations. All of my best friends came from Hampton. We all met that first year in Moton Hall on our 4th floor. And I could not have had a better experience at Hampton.
I have to echo that. But I didn't really have that expectation because I went to the Deep South. So first, for me, coming into the South, it was like people on the porches waving at me as I was coming down the street. I was like, whoa, what is this gonna be like? But then I realized, not long, that it was a big family. Literally, everybody is there to see your growth and to see you succeed. I had the home numbers to my professors. When I had questions, I could call them and say, I don't know what I'm doing with this project. It was one-on-one attention, and it was an expectation for me to excel. And so what it did for me, which I didn't realize, when I interned at General Motors in the summertime with the students from MIT and from all the other schools, I didn't feel inferior. I didn't feel like I knew anything less than they did, although I probably did. I wasn't gonna let them know that I knew that, right? Because this is what that school fostered in me, a confidence to be in that environment. No matter what I knew, no matter what I was gonna succeed. And that's what these professors and the teachers in the environment at Tuskegee did for me. So I didn't have that expectation, but it worked.
Interesting.
I studied under Ron Walters, who was Jesse Jackson's campaign manager in political science. I was in class with Jelani Cobb, talking about history and debating Kasim Reed in business and politics classes. So I mean, my experience at Howard was tremendous. I had a teacher, Dr. Taylor, who made me do a 25-page paper and wouldn't accept it when I turned it in. He told me I had to do it over because I was smarter than that, and made me do the paper again and gave me a C on the second one, right? So that was what was going on at Howard for me. Besides the great time I had, it was a very serious academic place, that's for sure.
That's for sure, and they all are. It's interesting. I asked you that question about expectations because, quite frankly, it was different for me personally, right? I had no expectations. I was actually the first on both sides to go to school. So winding up at Hampton, I didn't know what to expect, right? So everything was uplift for me. Everything was up. So I got another one for you. Let's talk about your experience as a student there. Did it have an impact on you being an advocate for social justice and civil rights? Mayor, why don't you take that one first?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I was a writer, like a kid. I used to write poetry and hide it in my back pocket on Avon Avenue on 14th Street, because I couldn't pull out a poem in front of you, so I was taking tape. Like, yo, y'all want to hear this poem? It just wouldn't pan out.
Right, it might have been a little,
It
saw you a little different.
Right, so when I got to Howard, I was able to go to my first poetry readings, first event, to be able to read poetry, join an organization called Black United Youth, began to study, incredible books that, I saw in my house but never read. And so when I got a chance to see them, I got an opportunity to begin reading and studying and learning these things. And we started our own organization as a result of that, called Neoforce, that we created there, mainly inner city young men and women from Baltimore, Cleveland, New York, Newark, all Philadelphia came together and tried to make some changes. While I was at Howard, we took over the administration building for 3 or 4 days. I was one of those people you see up there protesting, so we took over the administration building because Lee Atwater, who was the head of the Republican National Committee then, who had the Willie Horton ad, who put it out and said, because they furloughed black men, was trying to pick this racist and race baiting kind of ad. So we protested and we stayed in the building for 4 days. So my whole experience as an activist began and took root at Howard University, the studying, the organizing, the meetings, all of those things. So when I came back to Newark, it was just second nature for me to continue the things that I began at Howard.
Continue to struggle. So it's interesting. You're making me reflect during the time when I was at Hampton. It was about divesting in South Africa.
I was just going to say, that's what it was at Tuskegee when we took over the building as well. It was about divesting in South Africa. And that was my freshman year. And I remember taking over that building and camping out in Kresge Hall for 4 days. I mean, literally took over that. And that was my introduction in college, but as my mother grew up with and very active in Newark, I've been around that all my life. But I was able to continue that at Tuskegee.
So while I was at Hampton, I was the NAACP president for 3 straight years. And during my tenure as the NAACP president, Trayvon Martin was murdered, Mike Brown was murdered. And you can not imagine the tension that causes on an HBCU campus. And we wanted to meet with our local mayor and with our fire chief and with our police chief to have a conversation about what we were going to do within the city to have a better relationship with the police department, because we didn't have the greatest at the time. They declined the meeting. And so I led, thankfully we had a national board member from the NAACP that was based in Virginia. So we had very strong backing. We actually shut down the bridge and marched from campus, from President Harvey's house, across the bridge to the mayor's office, and shut down the entire bridge that connects downtown Hampton to the university, which also connects to the main highway. Think of it of the turnpike of Virginia 64. And we had a meeting that next day. They actually came and spoke at that rally at the end, because I don't think they thought students in this day and time were going to organize like our, ancestors and like the ones that came before us. And so that was impactful, but also as president of NAACP, I got to go to DC a lot. I was big on lobbying, going to Congress to have conversations about the Voting Rights Act. When I became president, they were actually repealing a key piece of the formula of the Voting Rights Act. Exactly. And so we were up there having powerful conversations as students. So it wasn't just the administration talking, and I feel like it had a deeper impact because you have these senators that are deep red states, right, who don't really want to hear us, but we're so articulate and we're so well spoken and we're put together and we're educated and we have our facts. And guess what? I also have the NAACP president sitting here behind me. And so that was my experience doing that. And again, I had people, friends at Montclair State and Keene calling me like, how can I do something like that? I'm like, listen, you gotta have a lot of political backing to be able to do things like that. But when you have conversations and when you talk to your leaders and you show up serious about business, they will back you as they did us.
For real. You heard it in all of the stories here. We just watched the documentary, and a lot of that information had to do with organizing and demonstrating and fighting for social justice and environmental justice. It's still occurring on HBCU campuses today, right? It's still occurring today. So if you didn't know that, it's not just yesterday. It's not just yesterday. Mayor, you talked about an organization that you and some of your colleagues and fellow students at the time started. So some of mine started one as well. It just wasn't quite as politically correct as yours. It was a chapter of Animal House, and that we started back in 1980. Remember, yeah, so it was a little bit different than yours. A little bit different. So next question. So now let's think about this from the perspective of students will choose HBCUs. Why is choosing the right HBCU based on your career choice important? Dr. K, why don't you take that first?
I think it's really important. I would love for every student to go to an HBCU. I think it's awesome. I think you also have to think about what you want to do. Some schools are stronger in some curriculums than others, right? So for me, electrical engineering, it was North Carolina A&T or Tuskegee because I knew that is their strength. That's what they're going to be imposing in me to make sure that I succeed. Whereas if you want to do something like business, communications, you need to look at the schools and their curriculums and see, as far as job potential, what they have for you. That doesn't negate any of the smaller schools or make a change for that. But if it's something that that's what your major is, you need to make sure that you research that school and make sure that you know about that HBCU and what they can offer for you. It's very important. You can graduate from an HBCU and still not have a job. So you want to make sure you graduate and have some place to go.
And when me and my best friend were looking at HBCUs, initially we both loved Spelman, right? The thought of going to a place where beautiful Black women get to thrive and be smart and wonderful. But they didn't have a school of business, and I knew I wanted to go into business. So I had to make the decision to say, yeah, I think I want to go to this school, but if I go to school, I got to major in math, and I don't like math. So I'm going to go to Hampton where they have a 5-year MBA program. I also knew I did not want to go back to school. I wanted to do school once. So I wanted to do a 5-year MBA program, which Hampton and FAMU were the 2 5-year MBA programs in the HBCU ecosystem. And so that's how I made my decision. But again, if you want to be in tech, you need to be going to A&T. It's not just enough to say, I want to go to an HBCU. You still need to be able to let your life do the singing, right? As you move on from your HBCU. So you need to make smart career choices.
If you can't make a decision, you should just go to Howard. I'm saying. When I first started, I was undecided, wasted a lot of money. I was undecided, and I thought I was going to be a communications major, and I wound up studying political science and history. And my guidance counselor said, "You took so many history classes when you were undecided, you might as well have a double major." So I wound up graduating with a double major in political science and history. But I would agree that you need to identify what it is that you want to do early on, if you can. The only thing that sometimes that changes in your effort, and you might get into a place and realize that you thought you wanted to do something, and you realize this is not exactly what you want to do, because somebody described it to you a little differently when you was a kid, and when you finally realize, you say, hey, this is not it. So, I would say be very thoughtful about that, and not be afraid if you have to pivot. You just have to have some counseling around you so you pivot correctly and not waste a lot of money and a lot of time.
Absolutely. And inside of that comment, as you're developing, I mean, it's one of the key things when I do speak with people about HBCUs. If you want your child to be someplace where somebody is going to care about them personally, somebody's going to care about their well-being, give them sound guidance when they're doing well, and more importantly, when they're not doing well. You want to consider an HBCU. You want to consider an HBCU because it's like a family, as we all know.
It's a little different than I think when all of us went to school, because when we went to school, we could not be in the opposite sex dorm after a certain time. Like, it was just, I still remember Miss Crenshaw, get in there, get in the dorm. Literally, we had an environment that already started from the moment you stepped on that campus for success. And it started with structure. So, that is what the HBCUs provided for us. Structure from the very beginning.
So stay there a minute. You talked about structure, but share some thoughts about how going to Tuskegee shaped your personal identity.
That's a good question. So I grew up here in Newark, obviously, and I think there is I guess people think people from the North are a little rude, a little brute. And so I may have been a little rough around the edges and
assertive.
And so going to the South really changed me into what I call almost like a Southern belle in some way, to the sense where I walk in the grocery store, I speak to everybody now, whereas when I first went down, it was like, you don't know me, you don't know my name. But now that you're down there, I mean, it just changes the person that you are. You just become a people lover. You become a want to have a family. And so that branches out into everything and everything that I involve myself in. So I will see myself transition to the type of person that was different than I would have been had I stayed here in Newark.
I want to jump on that. When I went to college, I was really trying to run away from the shadow of my dad and all of that. So I thought I was going to be able to go to Howard and just chill out and have a good time, And I did that, by the way. But I thought, I really was doing that. And I ran into a gentleman, I know you guys know Ta-Nehisi Coates, right? But his father is Paul Coates, who was the director of the Moreland Spindall Library, which is the largest library in the world, buying about Black people, goes back and forth with the Schomburg in New York. He was the director of that. He introduced me to the Schomburg. Introduced me to Moreland Spindall. And they had this kind of study room downstairs, and he would bring me all of these documents and all of these primary documents that I could read. And I would go down there and read that stuff over and over and over again. So it's almost like I went there to run away and ran into it. And Paul Coates published some of my father's early works, right? So he had a vested interest, and I thought my father called him, by the way, but he had a vested interest in making sure that I was successful down there. And just my trying to run away from that, running to that, just really broadened my ability to study and focus and made me embrace the thing that I thought was not going to be my identity. It became who I actually was.
Yeah, for me, I didn't see a light in myself that my professors and the people around me saw in me. So as far as shaping me as a person, they took it almost as their personal job. How do we help cultivate Brielle and help her realize this gift that she has? I remember she's now the dean of the School of Business, Dean Hayes. She pulled me into her office and she said, your height. There's so many things about you, but that was one thing that she would say, no, I need you to stand in front of the classroom and I need you to make this announcement and I need you to do this and I need you to be a presence and a strong leadership presence among your class. But I'm a freshman, I just got here. I'm trying to go out. I'm not trying to make sure these, and Hampton School of Business, we take dressing seriously. I mean, it is black suit, navy suit, hosiery. They don't care if it's 90 degrees outside. She's asking me to tell my classmates they gotta leave the classroom because they don't have hosiery. Why me, Dr. Hayes? But just not her, all of the leaders around you saw something special in all of us. So I'm telling you this story, but every single one of my classmates is going to tell you the same story about how they saw the thing in them that they said, no, we're going to cultivate that in Bria. We're going to cultivate that in Calvin. And it just shaped me as a person so much. I tell people I would not be who I am without Hampton University and the School of Business, not even close to it. I wouldn't be as outspoken, as opinionated, or any of the things that I am. So it helped shape me as a person tremendously.
So Bill, let me follow up with that. So you spoke about how a professor there helped to bring you out, led into you talking about how it's impacted your identity. Talk about how your time at Hampton has been woven into your life today, whether it's at work, in your community, whether it's church or working with a nonprofit. Talk about how your experience at Hampton is still part of your daily life today. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Ooh, so in the 5-year MBA program, you have to take a class called Kendo. It's a Japanese art, and you gotta put on these robes, and you gotta have these sticks, and you're in class fighting. And as you're fighting, you're saying these, what we call isms, and there's 12 of them. Things like think, move, exercise caution in economic affairs, reach back while climbing, give credit where credit is due. And there are these things that they are like hammering into your brain. And it's funny now because I go in meetings and I have to tell you, like my Caucasian peers, I was like, can I write? No, you cannot write that down. That's not for you. But I really walked through my life. Reach back while climbing is their favorite. I saw someone put it on LinkedIn the other day, and I'm gonna get with them when I see them. But it is really something that I live by, right? Like I go to Hampton at least 3 times a year, and I am present on campus. We have Prudential Fellows who get $10,000 scholarships and mentorships and get easier access. But things I take reaching back while climbing seriously. I'm taking exercise caution and economic affairs seriously. I had a mentor that once told me, your plan out of corporate America is financial freedom. And our School of Business dean also was very serious about that, about us getting life insurance, about us buying annuities who thinks of an annuity at 18? And so there were all of these isms and ways of being, which they changed from ways of doing business to just how you should be. You should give credit where credit is due. If someone came up with an idea in a meeting, you should say, Calvin, that was Calvin's thing. You should think, but you only move after you think. So there was like this whole order, and I take that with me everywhere. And again, I use it in meetings all of the time. They love it. There are little hashtags, but it really is a way of being and a way of moving, and it's not something that you just do for your 4 years at Hampton. And it's something that Hampton University, I think, holds us accountable for, right? For reaching back while climbing, for making sure we're exercising economic affairs so that we can give back to our university. Because when we talk about those universities closing, you know where the major funders of HBCUs are? Us, alumni, coming and giving back our money. If I don't exercise caution economic affairs, how can I have my dollars to give my $186 to Hampton every month? Or my bonus donation that I do every year. So those are a couple of mine.
Would anybody else like to comment?
No, she
summed it up with that. No, but you mentioned something that's important and near and dear to me. You're talking about helping the students, right? I know you were Prudential, and you're big supporters of Hampton, and I appreciate that. I got into my role as the president of the foundation maybe a little more than 5 years ago. and it was a personal mission of mine. If I don't do another thing while I'm the foundation president, I'm going to find a way to get some dollars to some HBCUs. And strong board, I was in a position back in 2021 to give $1 million to Hampton, Howard, and North Carolina A&T. And I'm looking to continue that. I'm going to continue that. Right.
And provide jobs to the young people from
That's
Howard.
right. That's
My
right.
son from Howard graduate, got a job with us.
Yes, interned with us. Yes, he did. Absolutely. I do give him a hard time about Howard, though. You know, like, I give him a hard time. So I got one for us. Let's talk about the response and reactions to the challenges that we get about the quality of education at HBCUs. Any comments you want to make when people may try to imply that it's inferior to the Ivy League?
I would say Martin Luther King, Thurgood Marshall, Charles Hamilton Houston, George Washington Carver, you know, all of these people, Booker T. Washington. I would go Ernest Just, go on and Mary McLeod Bethune sold sweet potato pies to build a college for girls that turned into Bethune-Cookman. These are serious people with serious ideas that shape this country for generations. And we are just lucky to be on the campus to bask in that history every day, all day. And that shadow that we stand under fuels us and gives us the spirit to continue that legacy and do incredible, magnificent things. Everybody I know that went to Howard University felt obligated when they left to make something transformative happen.
So, you know, as a part of Hampton's alma mater, we talk about letting our life do the singing, right? So whenever people ask me, because I get all the time, why didn't you go Ivy for your MBA? You would have been a great Harvard candidate. You would have been great at Wharton. And most of the time, my response isn't this arrogant, but sometimes I get a little arrogant and say, Prudential's 150 years old, right? And that 150-year history, I'm the youngest director in Prudential, ever. Not youngest Black, not youngest woman, just youngest. That title does not belong to someone that went to an Ivy League. The person right after that is another Hamptonian, Maurice Kirkendall, who is the second youngest director. So when you talk about, again, a financial institution like Prudential that has been around for 150 years, that only, at one point, only employed Ivy League grads and PWI grads, and you look at the talent that is coming through our organization and the way that we are empowered to really take control of our careers, and you will see one day a Black CEO of Prudential. You will see a Black CMO of Prudential. You will see us showing up in those spaces. So when people talk to me about Ivy League, I say, just watch. Just watch my LinkedIn, and you'll see what's gonna happen, and how I and many of my other classmates, peers, and the rest of us will continue to carry this torch forward. We're gonna have a Black governor one day, okay?
I hear you. I hear you.
We're gonna have an HBCU governor one day.
So at this point, why don't we transition? I think we have some questions from the audience. And so they have it. Thanks, Katar. All right, let's see what we got. Okay, so the first one. Okay. Do either of you have a PWI experience you can share that gives a comparison to an HBCU?
I do.
I do too. So when I graduated, I decided I wanted to attend medical school and become a physician. So I left Tuskegee, did my schooling, and went back to Rutgers University Medical School. And it was an eye-opener. I was so used to the environment of nurturing and people supportive, of trying to see me succeed. Whereas when I was at Rutgers, it was too bad. You know, hey, I got my grade, see you later, and so I wasn't used to that, so I had to learn how to adjust in an environment that was much more competitive and not supportive. It can be done, it's no problem, you can do it, you can master it, you can do anything, but it's definitely a different environment than it is at an HBCU.
I went to St. Peter's for grad school in Jersey City, and it was completely and totally different. People think that when you go to Howard, like a black college, everything is monolithic, but it isn't. We had some lively debates in those classrooms, but the debates were always out of love. Like, I could debate with a guy like Kasim or somebody else, and then after that, we go hang out at the punch out. At St. Peter's, it was different. You would be in class and you feel like you were actually being attacked. Like people, there was a whole discussion. It was about education, the whole discussion about Columbus and his impact on education, and Thomas Jefferson, all those folks, and they uphold these people. But I come from a school where we question all of these folks, so it was completely different the way I viewed it and the way they viewed it. And I say something about that, and it explodes into a tension where people don't even feel like talking anymore. The professor looks uncomfortable in a discussion that's going back and forth. So it makes you feel uncomfortable about what's happening. And I went to Howard, so I knew I was telling the truth when I was talking about it. So we would go back and forth. So it was definitely different. You could feel it right away in those debates in the classroom.
I think each of you appreciate this next question. Can you share any insight on what a first-generation immigrant student may experience at an HBCU? And the person who wrote the question said that they engage students from Nigeria and their families, and they're very nervous about how they might fit in.
Shouldn't be.
No, absolutely not.
They had student organizations. I mean, the West Indian Student Organization was probably the poppin'est organization on the campus. Everybody want to go to the events, the parties, all the things they have. And as a matter of fact, when I was at Howard, there was a Jamaican student who was the vice president of student government right before we became that. So, I mean, all engaged and involved. You see black people from all over the world on those campuses. It's impossible to go to these campuses and not meet a black person from a place you've never even been. You can't even pronounce the name of this place. I met black people who lived in Milwaukee. I didn't know any black people. Or Wisconsin, Milwaukee, I don't know where these people come from. But ultimately, all over the world is black people. You're gonna feel comfortable there.
You're gonna find your group within your group. So like my sister, we followed me to Hampton. I don't know why, we're only 19 months apart. But my sister had always had Caucasian friends. I couldn't understand why she wanted to come to Hampton. My sister likes anime. My sister is a book nerd and like fiction book nerd, like Harry Potter the first day it comes out. And when she came, other black nerds, I love it. But when she came to Hampton, my sister found her people, and I literally watched my sister transform in front of my eyes, and it was the most beautiful thing to see, to watch her mature, to watch her grow up, to watch her be comfortable in her blackness, to watch her be comfortable in being a black nerd with other black nerds that watch Japanese anime and that wear the t-shirts and that, don't dress like the hot girls and, don't dance when Juvenile comes on. They want to hear, Paramore or something. And so just to watch that closely, my sister, again, I've never seen my sister have black friends. And she came and she found her community within the community, and it's beautiful to see, so they'll be fine.
Yeah, I agree. There's a community for every person at a black college, every single one. And so I always tell my friends whose kids are deciding about HBCUs, don't worry about her. They'll be fine. They'll find somebody, no matter where you're from. It's always there. Everybody's there.
Your group is on that campus somewhere.
Your group is there. They're waiting for you.
They're on that yard.
And they have parties every Friday, and they got fundraisers, and they do giveaways and community service, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, it's great.
So this is a good one. I like this question. What do you think educators in the city of Newark can do to strengthen the pipeline to HBCUs?
First, put some flags up. Every time I go to these high schools, I see these flags on all of these schools, and I'm looking for HBCUs, and I can't find them. I'm like, you don't know that this HBCU exists? Like, all over you go around and they have all these Ivy League schools, because in our mind, there's a little voice in us that's telling us the Ivy League schools are the best, right? Schools. And we refuse to put up these things. There was a shirt we used to wear at Howard, and it said, people used to say Howard was the black Harvard, and we had the opposite shirt. Harvard is the white Howard. So we used to have that shirt, and we could wear that because, listen, at the end of the day, we are excellent.
Yes.
And it's important to show our kids that.
Man, I know somebody in the audience that runs an elementary school that has the HBCU flags all over it. Dr. Ledford sitting up there.
We have it at our charter school too.
How about that?
I think it's having conversations. It took just my best friend talking about her brother going to A&T for me to be like, oh yeah, I want to go and do that. So having conversations, and then wear your Nelia. I wear my Hampton Nelia all the time. I wear Delta Nelia all the time because I live in this community. I want kids in this community when they walk into Chipotle to see Hampton. I want when we're at Whole Foods for them to see Delta. And it's not just it's great for it to be in the school place, but when you walk around and see people that look like you, they're in spaces you want to be in, getting out of a nice car with a Hampton shirt on, getting out, walking out of a nice house or wearing some nice sneakers with a Howard shirt on, like that, you have to live it. We have to walk in it and be it.
But I also think it's important that we expose the teachers because maybe they just don't even know how to explain it to the students and to how to present it to them. So we also need to make sure that the teachers, especially in Newark, are aware of these opportunities for these young people because it's not for every young child to go to a PWI, but they can do well and succeed at an HBCU. So if we can just expose more of our teachers to that as well, that will make a difference.
And a lot of our local sororities and fraternities, we have HBCU bus rides. I know North Jersey Alumni Chapter. We put one on every year. You can join, again, I'm gonna talk only Delta Talk right now. If you have your children joining Embody, which is a program for young men, if you have your children join Delta Gems or Delta Team Lift, they're going to kind of get that exposure organically, but tap into what's going on with your local fraternities and sororities, because I guarantee you every single local chapter has a bus ride down to HBCUs.
Sure. So this is a good one, and I need to put a little context here. So we have a young person in the audience, the age of 8, and his question is, how did you get into college? So I'd like each of you to kind of tailor an answer to that person.
I don't know. I just worked real hard. I studied hard from, single digit ages all the way through high school. Just worked extremely hard and knew what I wanted to do and knew that I needed to excel and do well to get into college. And so that was what I did.
Now, I didn't have a super strong GPA coming out of high school. I was one of those kids, I still am one of those kids, that is smart, but I don't apply myself. So I came up with an average GPA, but I was extremely involved in my community. I was involved in a women's scholarship club and cotillions. I had always volunteered with local fraternities and sororities. I had always participated in Juneteenth events. From when I was a kid, I was very active in my church. So I had a very well-rounded application. So it's not just about the grades. So even if you don't have the best grades or a 4.0, there are other things that you can add. So I wish I could see the eagle, but there are other things that you can do and start doing now. My mom had me in Women's Scholarship Club Cotillion since I was 8, and that was a big piece of the interview that I talked about and when I was interviewing to go to Hampton. So community involvement is very important. Probably more important, I think, than GPA for HBCUs. They want well-rounded students.
Well, I was committed, and I would say that, and so I would try to figure out, even at 8 years old, 9, 10, you know, to begin to figure out what it is that you are interested in, what you want to do, and commit yourself to. I was completely committed to Howard University. I wanted to go to school there, and I told you don't copy what I did. I filled out one college application because that's where in my mind I was going to be. I mean, that's how I'm a determined kind of individual like that too. No plan B type of guy. So I wanted to make sure that I made that happen for myself. So I worked at it, did everything I needed to do in order for it to happen.
I think what I would offer, in addition to what you just heard to that young person is, first I would say, in all of your classes and while you're in school, the expectation first is that you always do your best. Always do your best. The second thing that I would offer is, just as you're participating in this panel discussion and a part of it today, make up your mind today that you are going to college. So between doing your best and making up your mind that you are going to college, you'll get into college as well. You'll get into college as well. So at this time, I really want to take a moment and thank all of our panelists for participating. This was a great discussion, and we need to have many more of them. But I'd like to offer each of you to be able to make some closing remarks. Yes.
Just quickly, just to close out, I think it is important to know that you see us up here, you see yourself. Where we are and where we have been is the same place you can go. So look at what we have brought to you today as an example of the next step that you will be in. So I can't wait to see where you will be, what you will choose, and when I can read about you.
Yeah.
Reach back while climbing. I'm gonna double tap on that just again. For everyone, the closing remark, all of us in here have a job to do to proactively reach back to the generations that are coming up behind us and to make decisions that will empower them to speak up, to be a part of the positive part of our system that helps our young Black and brown children get to, whether it be HBCUs, PWIs, Ivy League, wherever. But take that charge personal. I take the charge very personal to support HBCUs. And we talked about delivering money. We've delivered over $2.5 million in Hampton in the last 3 years. And so that is from alumni being in the room and saying, no, y'all not giving no more money to Rutgers, respectfully. How do we take a percentage of that? How do we take a piece of that and spread the wealth among HBCUs to be able to, again, empower that next set? So just, again, take reaching back while climbing seriously, take it a personal charge. I want to see y'all in Young Nelia around Newark and around New Jersey and just pouring into the next generation because they will only be what we give to them.
I would say legacy, more than anything. We just watched this film and you saw those kids sitting in. The first sit-in was started in 1961 by students from North Carolina A&T. Ezell Blair, Frank McCain, David Richmond, Joseph McNeil. I know those people because I studied at Norland Spingarn in that library downstairs. But at the end of the day, these universities were put up for a reason. They were put up because we were denied the opportunity to get a quality education. That's the reason they exist. James Baldwin said the reason that we have to think we're Black is because you insist on being white. So at the end of the day, these universities are there specifically for us, and we need to fill them up as much as we can with enough people that can come out of there and transform these communities and make this place better than what it is in the present.
We talked about spreading the word about HBCUs. Let's make sure our children, grandchildren, nieces and nephews, children in the neighborhood know about HBCUs. Let's spread the word. The other thing that we need to do, we need to be more philanthropic to our HBCUs. We need to make sure that they are funded so that they can exist for the next 100+ years and the next generations behind us. We want some of our children, some of our neighbors' children to be in the next documentary about the second 150 years of HBCUs, right? So it's real important. So with that, I thank everybody, and I'm going to ask Ms. Donald Walker to come back to the stage, please.
Thank you so much. This is absolutely incredible. You've been a wonderful, wonderful audience. Thank you, panel. It couldn't have been any better. This is it. Thank you. Calvin. And this is Calvin. 35 years. Happy, happy, happy anniversary. Another 35 for sure. I just wanted to acknowledge some of our elected officials we have here this evening. East Orange City Councilman Christopher R. We have Newark City Councilman at Large, Larry Crump. And of course, we have Mayor Dwayne Warren of Orange. Thank you. So we invite all of you to please join us for the after party at Heritage Hall. Yeah, the after party, yeah, absolutely. We have our drummers outside who will lead you over there to the Heritage Hall. I'm gonna give you the names of the drummers, so you'll know who they are. We have Amazonas, we have Batuki, and Kinar Zahir Uto. Those are the three drummers who are gonna lead us over to Heritage Hall so we can really celebrate our legacy HBCUs. I just wanna make sure you all know that we do have a lot of other events coming up here at JPAC. Are you all familiar with North to Shore? Yes, so North to Shore is happening now. You can just check the website for many of the different events. And of course, our community engagement department produces over 200 free events per year. So if you check the website, you'll see lots of things there. This Wednesday, we have another Juneteenth event. And this is for the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice. They're going to share a report on the Reparations Council for year one and how they're trying to bring economic balance to the Black community. So please join us this Wednesday at 7. Thank you, beautiful audience. We'll see you at the after party. Thank you.